republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have an agenda. We're going to cover the planner position under administrative reports. Is there any other changes to the agenda?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Do you have any questions or want to? Thurman? Second by Berg. All in favor? Aye. It's adopted. No presentations, proclamations, or acknowledgements. We'll move on to public comment. Patrick, you got anything? You good? All right. Public comments, please. Consent agenda. Anyone have any issue with anything on consent agenda or questions or anything?
I just had a question about the $250,000 transfers.
Savings and checking.
Any other questions? We have a motion by Timmerman. Anyone second it?
Second.
Second by C. Prasad. All in favor? Aye. Consent agenda passes. No public hearings, so we're on to general business.
First item under general business tonight is the acquisition of 448 Main Street. I'm going to have Renee give a presentation on the site.
448 Main Street, near to City Hall here, has been vacant for a number of years, probably at least 5. The city's dealt with code enforcement issues there over the years. Basically, at one point it was a garbage house, and then just the fact that it's been vacant has caused code enforcement issues. The property has gone tax forfeit based on non-payment of property taxes, so it has reverted to the state of Minnesota. That process, the first step in that process is they come to the city, and the city authorizes the sale for the property for public auction, or alternatively, the city can request that the property be conveyed to the city, or the city can purchase the property, essentially. The property is approximately 0.73 acres, has a current estimated market value of $76,000. It's zoned commercial. Even though there's a single-family residential home on it, it can never be used for single-family residential purposes going forward. The home is not habitable, and it's our opinion that home would need to be removed. We would recommend to the council that the city acquire the property to be able to remove a blighted situation, and then also for future city needs in terms of road right-of-way. You can see there's an adopted downtown master plan. It was originally adopted by the city of Newmarket in 2005, and the combined cities still honor that downtown master plan, which show kind of a backage road on the north side of County Road 2, and then also a future north-south road that would connect between County Road 2 and James Parkway on the north, which is partially graded in to the north. So we certainly think it's in our best interest to retain that property or obtain that property at that time. There's a purchase price involved. Purchase price with some associated closing fees would total $23,554 to the city. Anytime a property is sold during tax forfeiture, there's a percentage that actually gets returned to the city. We also have some assessments on the property for our cleanup that we've done over the years. So we would end up getting money back from the sale from the county. So we'd pay the county, and then they'd pay us a portion back. So our net cost to acquire the property is estimated to be $15,892.
Can I interrupt and ask why? Like, why do we get a rebate, I guess?
I think the intention of the rebate is that we've lost out on property taxes for 7 years during the non-payment period.
Okay.
So it's just compensation back to the city for lost revenue.
And I suppose for whatever reason, they can't just discount that from the price. They just have to do it this way.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So we're recommending that you purchase the property. It's important to note that there would be future expenditures associated with the taking down or removing of the house. In my past experience, I would estimate it to be somewhere between between $10,000 and $20,000. Doesn't have to be done right away. It could be done at, towards the end of the year if there's anticipated to be extra funds in some budget. But at this point, the Economic Development Fund has a balance of $145,000, and it could be funded from there or general fund reserves. So, would recommend that you adopt Resolution 1942 authorizing the purchase of the property.
Anyone have questions for staff?
Motion to approve resolution 19-42.
Motion by Zero,
Second.
second by Severside. Any further discussion before we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Thank you. On to reports. Administration.
So the council asked to place this item on the agenda during the work session related to hiring a planner position. It's one of the things we talked about for the 2020 budget. One of the options is that we could include in the 2020 budget, but the council wouldn't necessarily have to wait until 2020 to authorize the position. We could do it sooner. If we were to do it sooner, I would ask the council just direct me to take a look at how we would fund it in the interim. There's a number of ways we can do it. One, there is a local budgeting contingency in the budget for unexpected circumstances, such as this. Also, we do have general fund reserves, if you recall from the audit. We had a good year within the general fund simply because we had vacant positions that were budgeted, so there are reserves in there. So what we would do is rather than sweeping those dollars to another fund like capital outlay or the capital projects fund, we would just simply use reserves to fund the position, then for the remainder, some of those dollars to fund the position for the remainder of the year. The other option is if we feel it's related to development, we could utilize dollars through the end of the year from the Economic Development Fund. So I don't think there's an issue with regards to availability of dollars, provided that the council is willing to use them and seeking to do that. The position itself would essentially be doing what Haley's doing for us today. They would essentially be a line staff person within community development and would do everything from code enforcement to front counter service, zoning enforcement, reviewing zoning applications, and assisting with economic development. Right now, Haley, who's currently in the position, is working full-time. There is that volume of activity coming through. And what this position would do, if the council authorized it, is essentially make a permanent position for a need we have ongoing and we foresee going on into the future, and it exists today. So it's not adding additional resource, it's essentially just funding a permanent position that's currently being filled by an intern that has the capabilities to do it.
It's kind of getting the same thing but paying more for it, but this is kind of the circumstance.
Well,
You kind of have to do that if you want.
It is, although quite honestly, not all interns are going to be able to provide that same level of service. There's a ramp-up period. Part of the reason Anthony was able to do it is she's been with us for the better part, for most of a year already. I don't want to toot her horn, say, but I am. She is one of the better interns I've had over the years, and I've had a number of them, and she's probably in that upper echelon of people that you're going to get. Not every intern is going to be there. We may not be able to recruit an intern all the time, and we may not find interns that have that level of availability. So it's a similar discussion with the seasonal position for Public Works, where the need is there. Having the reliability of that position, somebody that can grow and increase in the value of the organization over time would be the benefit.
I don't know what the qualifications are, but she meets all the minimum quals.
She would exceed what the minimum qualifications would be for the position.
I have a question as it relates to if you brought her on or hired her before the beginning of the year.
Well, and I would ask the council at this point, I'm not.
We're talking position.
We're talking the position, not a specific individual.
Well, but my question's more towards the budget
Yeah.
piece of it. So you mentioned that we have kind of room in the budget if we wanted to make the position earlier based on contingencies.
We would be using some form of reserves.
Form of reserves.
Yep.
remind me, when we don't use the entire budget, but we have to budget for certain items, that just goes to reserves, does that go to capital outlay, or what happens?
Yeah,
Yes,
good question.
it is a good question. So
Thank you.
if we have a budget surplus at the end of the year, revenues were higher than expected, expenditures were less or both, but we have a good budget year, our fiscal policies say that we will maintain a certain balance within our general fund. It's enough reserves to basically cash flows between our two big paychecks from the state, or intermediate property tax supplement. We then would transfer those dollars to a debt service fund, or capital outlay, or similar items. So past practice, we've transferred it to capital outlay to supplement or shore that up in some way. We've used it to make capital purchases. We've transferred it to the economic development fund and or transferred it to the capital projects fund. Over the last several years, the overwhelming recipient of those dollars has been the capital projects fund. That from its inception was largely funded by sweep dollars when we had whether it was $5,000 or $100,000 that we had, we would sweep those extra dollars into that fund. So on an annual basis, we would do an examination of if we had any, how much they were, and what was the best use of the dollars at the time.
Is there an argument to be made for using some of the, I don't want to say annual reserves, I don't know what the right verbiage is for it, but somehow utilizing those leftover funds as surplus to minimize the tax or reduce the tax impact for next year?
Well, the thing to keep in mind is that's one-time dollars, and the tax impact, all the items that we've talked about that have a tax impact are ongoing expenses. So you might utilize it to, let's say, fund the position for the remainder of this year because it's a one-time use and one-time dollars, and there would be that connection there, that nexus. If you're doing it in the future, you don't know if you're going to have that surplus in the future, so you can't really budget for it. Or you would just simply eliminate your contingency, which then would eliminate your flexibility in case something unexpected,
So
good
you're
or
saying-
bad, comes up.
So what you're saying is it's kind of going back to kicking the can.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, and I mean, I'll go back and maybe push a little on that. I know we're talking about the position and not the person yet at this point, but I don't want the position if we're potentially losing the person either. So I would hate to post
True.
and then we lose our intern position, i.e. Haley, and now, so I mean, I think
Yep.
they kind of are linked in my mind anyway.
I would say that they are new. I think we have a very good person in the position right now. I think in any candidate pool, that person would be a top candidate. I do know that if we wait to post the position, we would lose that person out of the pool because good people have options, and
Yep.
quite honestly, her internship is at a certain point.
Which is when?
End of October. If I was in her position, I would start looking for stuff so that I don't
Right.
end up with thinking,
Yeah.
people gotta eat, they gotta live, you gotta have
Mhm.
income. It's a straight up business. So, and I wouldn't fault her if she started looking, if there was no potential for future opportunities, or she went earlier, we just, well, it could be up to that point if she found something better in the meantime, she leave, and that's just as normal. With regards to whether or not you just promote somebody internally or I'll be perfectly, I think we know, I know from my experience, from my experience we've had these discussions many times, she's an individual who we would not be shouldered in hiring her into the position. The discussion though of whether or not to have a practice of just promoting people versus going out has kind of a longer term cumulative effect. So I'm going to give you my opinion on this and soapbox on it. And within the history of the city, since I've been with the city, and so I'm the first full-time employee for the city, so I can say, so all the full-time employees we've ever had. There have only been 2 instances where we have not posted a position. One was our former mechanic, Steve Manthai, passed away. He was a public works foreman who was doing 80 to 90% of the mechanic work, and we just reclassified him to reflect what he was actually doing. So that really wasn't an apples to apples comparison. And the other one is I recommended the promotion of Sandy to city clerk. City clerk is a position where you just don't go find people with city clerk abilities to move into that, so we had somebody in-house that could do the job. So I would consider those to be special circumstances. In all other cases, including like part-time officers applying for full-time positions, seasonal public works employees applying for full-time positions, we've always posted the position. Now, an internal candidate, if they're really a good candidate, they have an automatic advantage. They're known quantity. If if you like it, there's the usual things. Now, that being said, the reason that we have done it in the past is the long-term cumulative effect on an organization that potentially exists. If you always just hire from that in-house pool, the minor leagues that you've established, whether it's seasonal positions, internships, or whatever, and it becomes just a way of doing business, you may not always be getting the best person for the job, or the person is the best fit for the organization, and there's the potential over the long term, cycles of hiring people, et cetera, to not be the best that you could be as an organization because the people you're having aren't the best people that you could have gotten over that time period. So it's a cumulative effect, it's a philosophy. Now, is there always exceptions to rules? Absolutely. Is that the best way to do it? It's arguable. Now, for instance, if you take a look at larger law enforcement agencies, they will use their CSO programs, and they just hire out of their CSO programs because it's, as Steve was talking, or Brady was talking about, sorry, Brady.
I've done
I know. As Brady was talking about during his presentation, I was referring to Steve, the officer.
Oh, okay.
As Brady was talking about during his presentation, you got it, but you have to have a large enough department and a large enough CSO pool for that to really be effective. So if you're Apple Valley, that works. Out in the market, not so much. So there are other ways to do it. I'm not in a position tonight to make a specific recommendation on that. We've been having discussions internally. I've been having discussions internally. I've been consulting with members of the management team and with Renee on that. I would like to keep the discussion at this point limited to the position itself, and then I would make a recommendation to the council on whether or not we post the position.
So even if we all, I'm just guessing, happen to share an opinion, you're not interested in hearing it?
The council is my boss and can tell me to do whatever they want.
Council.
Okay, I
You
have
have-
one question. What is the difference between the internship fee and?
Haley's make-
fee?
70 grand?
Haley's making $16 an hour with no benefits.
Okay.
So,
Does she have to finish out the internship? Like, is that like a requirement for schooling or whatever she's doing?
no, she's actually graduated. This isn't the schooling requirement. She's simply, it's an internship to gain experience.
But it ends in October.
But the council's only authorized it through the end of October.
So can we just make a decision today?
Well, that's kind of what I just asked him, and I'm just going to say yes. We can make a
Yeah.
decision, and do we have a consensus that we would,
Well,
does anyone want to actually post this position?
No.
No.
Josh? You have direction.
okay, I'll have an action item on the next agenda.
Thank you. I mean, anything else?
And so then we're assuming we're gonna get this done as soon as possible.
So what I would do with the next, we would need to adopt a job description, we'd need to amend the salary schedule, both council actions, and need to authorize me to hire the position. So,
All right,
Sounds good.
sorry.
no, we're good.
All right. Public Works, I mean, Corey's not here, but anyone have any comments or anything? Okay. Police?
So this was, you got my report there, a couple of notable items. One of them was the amount of prescription and over-the-counter medications we collected at the box outside. Very impressed.
We had directly right after the advertisement of it, we had a ton of use very shortly where I took in 60 pounds within 2 months. So that is correlated to the time that we got registered and we got a DEA number, and so it was starting to be advertised on websites and everything, so it had a direct cause effect. So that was really good. Those 5 huge boxes of drugs we've been taking to the sheriff's department, and they will be incinerated at a power plant, or at a, yeah, it's a power plant.
Are When drugs are dropped off, are they like in the bottles, or are people just, I mean, are
They're
you able
in
to
their
tell what kind of
containers.
drugs, I guess, is what I'm getting?
Yep, they're in the containers. By the mass amounts that are in there, we don't pay attention, we don't categorize, we don't look. But I would say it's 75% prescription, and then the rest are over-the-counter type medications.
And with prescription, you don't look at all to see if it's opioids or if it's antibiotics or
No,
anything?
no,
different.
I don't
Okay.
use any of them, so I don't look.
But you have to have a training officer that, you know,
Which
does
actually,
that.
it is very controlled, so I cannot open that without another officer, and then we directly secure it. We stay together the entire time, it gets weighed together, we both initial the weight, and we seal it with evidence tape, so it is very well regulated. Then when I bring it to the sheriff's department, they subsequently weigh everything to make sure it's the same, so it's really controlled. But don't mean to ingest that much with it, but, moving on, fire rescue days was an awesome experience for me. Had a great time as my first one. I liked being pummeled by being told I was going too slow and that I was going too fast. So there's gonna be an adjustment for next year, depending upon the number of floats. It lasted about an hour and 15 minutes, which was awesome. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I had a great time. It was great seeing everybody here, a lot of you down at the park after, and then the firemen's dance and food and everything. It was a good time. We only had one disturbance. It was extremely minor, and it was towards the end of the night, and it was when an ex came in with a picture of the current couple that was there, so, it was resolved, no charges or anything, everybody left.
I'm sorry I left before that.
We are gonna be shortly, but we've started an education campaign in regards to ATV, UTV, golf cart, mini bikes, vehicles.
Out in public, we've seen, from historically what I've been told from people who have been here longer than me, a really large increase in complaints and use by minors, more than what's been seen in the past, and I'm sure you have your own opinions on it. So, I directed my staff and myself and very specifically to start an education campaign. It's not an enforcement campaign. We are making contacts with people and educate them about the ordinance. What we've been finding is pretty close to half has been juvenile use so far. Very illegal, very dangerous juvenile use, just by the fact, the cause of effect of 10 and 12-year-olds driving, 800-pound vehicles around in our neighborhoods. So that's what we're going to continue to do. We're working right now on a public education where we're going to be posting on the city website and Facebook pages. And also I'm going to be working with my staff to develop handouts that have links and then general information about what our ordinance is and what state laws are in regards to that. So I don't anticipate it changing anytime soon. There's only been one citation issued, and that was due to kind of reckless dirt bike use. And that person who was cited had been warned several days earlier and actually told what the ordinance was, and they chose to disobey it, and they received a citation for it. That's the only person that's been cited, and that's the way it will continue unless we have a similar circumstance. That's kind of my philosophy. I think I've laid to you is more education than enforcement at this point.
St. Thomas Street. I would have to do more research on what the local ordinances, but I do want to.
Continue on Main Street for 1 mile.
I've been approached myself by a couple of neighbors that kind of angry because they were approached by law enforcement and just riding their four-wheeler with the kids, and so I really just want to dig deeper into it to see if maybe something needs to be changed.
Okay.
I would impress upon the council the intricate nature of DNR regulations, state statute,
Right.
and then how ordinances play.
Right.
Andrea can speak to this. A vehicle can be classified in many different ways, And a motor vehicle specifically, when you're in the traffic statutes, a golf cart fits the definition of a motor vehicle. So therefore, you can get a DWI on it, you can face all the regulation and everything like that, but yet a golf cart doesn't fit the ATV statutes by DNR statutes, definitions by DNR. So it's very intricate, it's very complicated. Officers like myself who enforce those rules get tripped up because there's so many different layers in it. Our ordinance hasn't changed ever since Tom's been here. It's been virtually the same when it regards to ATVs. And I can say there's no malice in our enforcement of it. It's basic general safety. Some of the individual.
I understand that. I haven't myself personally, I'm gonna let you guys know, I haven't myself personally looked at the local ordinance for the ATV. And I totally get the juvenile riding the golf carts, I totally get that, it has to be safety first. But I just think that maybe it needs to be looked at because,
Well, what you're saying is, at a future
mean-
point, you wanna
Right.
discuss this more.
yeah, I do.
Yeah,
And
that's
what,
fair.
and what
I
I
do.
would remind you is that Brady and I, and Bernie, whatever, depending on the question, we're your resources for that research. So as you have questions, come in. Our job is to enforce or educate on what the current regulations are. Your job is to decide what those are. So if you want to do research on that for potential changes to it,
I
we're
do.
resource for you, so.
Okay, all right.
So I have a question for you. Today, driving down two kids on an ATV pull out, and they're hit the 45 mark and they're off on two. The kid in the back stands up. I'm following behind them. In a case like that, I mean, they're in the middle of the road. They're not even in a lane, going faster than me, and I'm in a vehicle. Is that a situation where we call you and say, yo, what's going on?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I want to impress upon you, this year so far, we've had 21 complaints, traffic stops,
Contacts where we've stopped. And like I said, almost half have been juveniles. But this is not reported. I mean, you didn't report that one, that happened. So you all see this. I know from law enforcement, and I've just been approached by citizens and go, when are we gonna do something about these ATVs ripping around town? Well, we have an ordinance, we enforce it as much as we can, and so it's happening way more than these times. The people who live on Brady Street behind Fish Rock, they don't report it hardly ever, but Corey can tell you he's got emails upon emails, dozens from different people complaining about the use on the road. So it has many layers in it, and it's from our aspect of it. There was a story on Channel 9 you might have seen of a 12-year-old girl who dumped her little sister out and catastrophic injuries. I don't even know if she made it, but she died. And a deputy just reported to me in a different county just several weeks ago. It didn't make the news, but a gal was just laid in her driveway to tan, and a family member backed the ATV out, going to mess around right over her and killed her. I mean, these things are, unfortunately, they have a lot of potential for public safety and harm, and we haven't had it here, anything, but that's kind of what we're trying to prevent, and that's why the code that we've had for so long is a general code that's used by many cities to protect the public from just the amount of use of it, so.
I see the other side of it too. You know?
And I do,
put
and
a
I'm trying
helmet
to.
on, I put a helmet on I get on my four-wheeler, I put a helmet on, my son puts a helmet on, and we go right around the dirt roads. I mean,
But our ordinance provides for that, so.
And allows
right,
that.
I know, yep, I get that, but I think that there's a lot of confusion with what our ordinance allows.
That's where
And I
Yeah,
think-
exactly, that's why, yeah.
And I applaud the approach,
Mhm.
going for education. It's not enforcement, which I think is kind of befitting of our city.
It's our community, and
Right.
we'll try to reflect what the community wants, but we cannot circumvent state laws, Andrea will tell you, we can't
Right.
circumvent DNR. And the statutes are written the way they are for public safety and for general, and it's consistent throughout the entire state. So our intent is nothing but to educate what we currently have and to keep everybody safe. And the 12-year-olds that I've stopped, and I know Josh has stopped many young kids on these things, their intent isn't to harm anybody.
Right.
But the potential,
Yeah.
and that's in law enforcement, that's why we enforce speeding, that's why we enforce distracted driving. That's why our new law changed, where it's gonna be hands-free August 1st, you know, the intent is to protect the public from harm.
get that.
And that's our intent too, is just to educate.
Yeah. Okay.
Mayor,
Anything else for-
I was going to mention regarding that subject, I did receive a telephone call at City Hall today. I sent you to an email. I'm not sure if you've seen it yet, but there was an individual, a resident, that called and asked if they could be placed on the agenda pertaining to this specific item you wanted to address the council. And I kind of have a feeling that there might be additional people accompanying that individual. So it might be, and I think if it's not an agenda item, he might address the council during public comment, but it might be an idea to have the education component at the same time.
Yeah. Good plan.
I personally have people to me on the
Yeah,
past 2 days, weekend.
I've gotten emails and stuff too. Anything else?
Thank you.
for-
Thank you.
Nothing to be passed on from fire department, I assume?
Well, we do have a fire district work group meeting, the first one like a year and a half on Monday. We have all new fire district work group members. All of our elected officials are new to the group, so we'll be starting a little bit from square one with regards. We lost a lot of institutional knowledge and history over the last couple of years as people have turned over. But we'll have that first meeting. One of their first things will be making a recommendation on the fire department budget to the council as part of the draft budget process.
That's at 3 o'clock, right?
Yep.
All right. Any questions on that? Rich, good to see you, man.
Yeah, thanks. GMH is the contractor you awarded the pavement rehab to, and I exchanged the messages with the foreman that'll be working here. He's thinking they'll probably start mid-August, preparing paving first week of September, so at least a current schedule. So just an idea when that would happen.
All right. No one have any questions for Rich? All right. Community development.
Most of the information in your packet was up to date. Christmas Pines and Boulder Heights are under construction. We have inspector assigned from Bolton and Mink. Still slow because of the weather and rain.
But Boulder Heights is actually moving too? I haven't been back.
Well, I got an email.
Yeah.
It was just electrical shop drawings for the lift station, but it's something.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Not
we-
like Christmas Ponds.
Yeah, they've moved some pipe equipment out, but it's been wet, so.
So something's happening in Boulder Heights. All right.
Cool.
Sorry, that just threw us all off for a
Yeah.
loop, so please continue.
No, we've been communicating with them for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I think, with the weather really has screwed them up, but I did correspond with Luke yesterday, last night, and he said they have the equipment on site to start utility installation. Finish utility installation. Our first requirement, our first concern is to address erosion issues that have happened on the site, and Rich has conveyed that to him, I've conveyed that to him, so before they get going on any other work, they need to address that. Sylvester Meadows is the kind of controversial plat south of Aaron Drive. That was on the Planning Commission meeting in May, and they are scheduled to be back on the Planning Commission meeting in July. The reason for the delay was really 2 reasons. To give the attorney working on behalf of Mr. Klein an opportunity to submit a hydrology report that has not been submitted. And then it also was, the developer had some items yet to submit, and they have not been submitted yet either. So we'll just have to see if they come in and we have an opportunity to review them before planning commission meeting. But I'm sure you have seen some of the social media information on that plat.
Can I interrupt
Yes.
real quick? Is anyone planning on going to that planning commission meeting? If I'm in town, I'll be there.
I'll be there.
When is it again?
It's the 28th.
The last Tuesday.
Okay.
Month.
Yeah.
Okay, I should be good.
We just need to post it.
Yeah, you might wanna just post it just in case. If I'm in town, I'll be there. All right, sorry, continue.
On that planning commission agenda, we will have a big agenda. We're happy to announce that we've received development applications for that Pete's Hill development that was recently annexed. So we'll be holding a public hearing on that. We're currently reviewing the plans and stormwater information that they've submitted. We've also received an application for the second phase of the Elko New Market Retail Center. So that would be the final phase of the strip mall, which would then connect the parking lots between the firehouse and the retail center.
So those tomatoes at the end, so everybody's gonna sit around and wait for it?
It will be at the end because you put the public hearings on the beginning of the agenda, and then the regular business items come at the end, so it is currently scheduled at the end. It's important to note that the Planning Commission has held the public hearing, and they closed the public hearing on that matter. So the additional information that's going to be presented to the Planning Commission at this time is information. They could choose to reopen the hearing, but I don't anticipate that. I think they've heard what they needed to hear, or probably needed to hear at the last meeting. But, do you have any other questions? Okay, thank you.
What is it? Parks, any notes from Mark beyond what was included? Anyone have questions on parks?
No, you guys will, if you didn't already get it, you'll be getting, the update didn't quite make the packet, so.
CCEC,
Zoom meeting next week.
okay. Other committee reports, scale, there's no July scale meeting. We are having an exec meeting tomorrow morning to kind of, I guess, review the results that we had gotten from the last scale meeting. So, are you going to be at that?
No, I'm actually gonna be up in St. Paul for another meeting related
Okay.
to the street fee stuff, so I'll be there in the morning.
Okay.
Will that be accumulated and finished for the August meeting? So that
Yeah,
all of us
we-
can look at it or not?
We'll have another executive meeting before the general meeting in August. So, yeah.
It'd be really interesting to see what the tally ended up being, but.
I mean, I have a lot of the information and I just haven't gotten to it yet. I'll have to be looking at it tonight, so.
Okay. Cool.
Sorry.
All right.
MBTA, is that John?
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
She didn't
John.
have anything for me to relate to council.
Okay. I-35?
I did, oh shit, when I was looking at this, I totally spaced it off this morning. I had an ALS meeting, so I did not attend.
You could have just said you had
I
a
could have
conflict
said
and.
that.
Right,
No, I
you
did the
didn't even have to
This
admit
is the second
that.
Tuesday. Yeah, so I didn't go.
Chamber of Commerce, Josh, you attended the board meeting. How'd that go?
Good, it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was more fun than I thought it was gonna be, to be honest. No, I thought it was a good conversation. It was there, I mean, we stood around and we chatted for like 45 minutes and.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I thought it went well, okay.
Yeah, I thought it went really, you did really well.
Good.
You done good.
It was a good conversation. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is just continue to share more information. I will just continue to say, I want them, they need to ask too and not just wait passively for information to come.
Mhm.
And just try to say, hey, we're in this together, we got different roles to play. But honestly, if the chamber can kind of highlight, if we all can tell the story of us doing things better and how the narrative has changed, or we're trying to change it, coming from them, it's huge to businesses, development, blah, blah, blah. We can sit and say that all we want, but hypothetically or perception-wise is we drink the Kool-Aid, we think everything's great about the city. So if they can actually help us get that message out there, I mean, it's gonna carry a lot more weight, so.
Speaking of chamber, did we figure out anything about night 2 night?
I still haven't been able to connect with Brady on
Okay.
that discussion.
Okay.
Um,
I know in years past, we've always sent people. So I know that Dawn was just asking if that was something that we needed to be planning on this year.
I wanted to have a discussion with the new chief with regards to that, so
Okay,
I will get back to you.
perfect.
Even the, I suppose, I mean, you're certainly welcome to represent the city at a chamber board meeting, but that would, it seems like it might be redundant. All right. Renee, did you want to tackle the next one?
Sure.
Next chamber board meeting? Okay.
Sure.
Sure, it's right on our docket of fun.
I'm just, rotating. People like
I've
Renee.
been there several times, not
Yeah.
in the last 4 months, I don't think, but.
Okay.
What's the date again?
It's the second Tuesday of the month at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So the date will be August 13th.
I'll maybe ask Erin if she can just send appointment invites. I'll tell her who's going and maybe she can just send a calendar invite.
I would talk to Dawn.
Talk to Don?
Yeah.
Okay. Erin was the one that called to confirm on Josh.
Oh, I thought you said Karen.
No,
You said Aaron. Yeah,
Aaron.
talk to Aaron.
Okay.
Yeah. That would work great.
Thanks for that prompt.
Yeah.
Totally not sure that-
One comment I'll have on the chamber, so I met with Don, actually ran into Josh at Firefly beforehand, and we started talking the state of the city. I just, sometimes I just talk, and she was asking what I wanted to do, and I've been saying for a while, I want to do something very different than we've done in the past. I said, in my perfect world, I would love to have the city council almost as a panel, sitting on the stage, taking questions from people. I don't know, thought it could be fun. We'll see what the chamber has to say about that. If anyone is very opposed to that, please tell me that now, so I don't push that any further.
I'm okay with it, but my concern is they ask us something and we answer totally stupid and we get the look from him.
Well, city staff would probably be
No, I
up
mean
there as
like,
well.
like if we answer it maybe not the way we should have, or,
Well,
that
Are we
would
gonna
be
on
my,
stage? Did you just say
But-
staff would be on
But
stage?
you guys are providing
I'll
the
be
answers.
there.
I'm assuming that a more technical question might be directed to staff, or would be
Okay.
available as a resource. I'm
Right.
assuming
all right, that's fine, as long as, if you're gonna be up there, that'd be cool.
we'll be available as a resource if that's the
Okay.
format.
Because I don't want to get asked a technical question going, blah, blah, blah.
Well, and Don asked me what I wanted, that's what I thought would be great. I want our council,
That's a great idea.
I think we have just such a good council, and the more we can be out there interacting with people, even as a group, the better, so
It shows unity. I like it, good job, Mayor.
thanks. Anything else regarding the chamber before we move on? All right, any discussion by council? Anyone?
To adjourn.
Motion by Berg,
Second.
second by Timmerman, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.